It's a podcast. You're listening to Gorehead and The Wiener.
Oh yeah, I'll record this. I'm recording it now.
Oh my god, this meeting is being recorded. Jesus, just told me.
It just told you.
Just told me. A little robot voice.
Oh yeah, so I guess we should start with, we could just get right into the meat of it then.
Mm-hmm. The human meat.
The movie that I watched for the first time was The Thing, and it was amazing. I didn't think I'd be able to watch it. I was so scared that I was going to have nightmares for weeks, but I was actually more fascinated by it. And yeah, I guess like I'll say the basic premise of it and then you can expand on it. But basically, The Thing is a story of a group of American researchers in Antarctica who encounter an eponymous I took something off Wikipedia. So.
Eponymous? Like, oh, we're veering off.
To encounter The Thing, a parasitic extraterrestrial life form that assimilates and imitates other organisms. The group is overcome by paranoia and conflict as they learn that they can no longer trust each other and that any one of them could be the Thing.
Dun, dun, dun.
I don't know what that word is. Eponymous. Anyways, that took the mystery out of making me sound smart. I just took something off Wikipedia.
Right, it's all going well until you can't pronounce all the words. It's like, shit.
That was a word I can't pronounce.
Yeah, it's like, that's a made up word. Epitome?
It's spelled EPONYMOUS.
I have no idea.
Right? I don't know. But yeah, that's the synopsis for The Thing, and I thought it explained it pretty decently.
Yeah, it's a scary movie about a bunch of dudes in the snow being trapped and having to deal with a horrible monster.
They're all isolated up in the Arctic, which is actually BC.
Yes, it is. Except for I found out only the very first shots with the helicopter and the dog, those were filmed in Alaska, actually.
Oh, okay, cool.
And the guy who's actually in the helicopter is like I think he's the cinematographer, and he was like he was also a brother-in-law to Kurt Russell at the time.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, okay. I didn't realize that those ones were not in DC,
They also made up all the Norwegian words he says, because he's like, does anyone know?
Did he really?
Yeah, so they just say like Swedish chef type words like, borka dorky.
Oh my god, that's great.
Dorgan.
When I rewatch that'll be perfect.
Yeah, please listen to like what he actually says, because it's all gibberish.
It's all gibberish. Okay. Why, I guess on to the next part. Why did you choose The Thing for me to watch?
Well, it's more a personal pleasure, I guess, for me to show people The Thing that haven't seen it, just because I love The Thing so much. I haven't. I was trying to recall actually the first time that I watched it, and I can't really pinpoint when it was, but it was very early on in my childhood, and I'm pretty sure my mom showed it to me on one of Halloween, because my mom always showed me spooky movies around Halloween.
Yeah.
And so I think she just showed it to me when I was probably like 10 or 11. And I remember watching it just being blown away by the spectacle of it. Just like
that's so crazy that you watched it so young, though.
Well, you're talking to a kid whose mom also showed him Aliens when he was 7. So I watched Predator when I was 7, and so I grew up in a house where my mom was like very okay with like showing me like more violent adult movies as long as she watched them first, and she would like cover my eyes during like the really horrible gore or nudity. So, you know, at
The
least
nudity is not okay, but yeah, gore fine.
You can see, yeah, she was fine with like showing me monsters. I think she was like, that was kind of like, it's like a monster doesn't exist, it's not real. So even if a monster's scary, they can get over it, whatever.
Yeah.
It's like you can tell a kid that it's not real in the end. So, but she always made sure if it was like realistic violence to a person that I didn't watch it, because that's like obviously way more relatable to me. It's like, oh, that guy got his arm blown off. I could get my arm blown off.
I could have that happen.
Yeah.
I was stuck in the Arctic.
Right. So I wanted to show you The Thing because it's definitely one of my personal favorite horror movies of all time, and I can't even tell you how many times I've watched it. It's many.
Yeah, okay. But you still thought I could handle it, even though it's like one of the most renowned horror movies out there. As someone that isn't like super amazing with gore. But...
Yeah. Well, it's funny because like The Thing is like, yeah, it's very famously known for having all these like traumatic monsters in it and stuff. But again, I guess kind of with my mom's thought process, I kind of had the similar one where it's like, yes, these things look kind of terrifying when you see them, but it's a giant monster and it's not real. Like nothing.
It's pretty abstract in terms of gore.
Yeah, it's very Lovecraftian, which is definitely what they were going for, where it's just like, it's an undescribable sort of. That's why it's called The Thing.
Yeah.
It is a thing. There is no better way to describe it than that.
And the gore in it is very, I mean, I was afraid. I knew the one like arm chop off scene was going to happen because I've seen clips of that.
Yeah.
And that was by far, I guess the most realistic thing in it. And it's not realistic at all. It's like literally Jello arms being ripped off.
Well, it's funny. So for all the goop in The Thing, they use the same chemical as Twinkies. The same.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I forget what the chemical is called, but the chemical is the same binding agent in Twinkies that makes the Twinkie cream, and that's what they use to make the goop. All the blood.
Well, that makes me want to eat a Twinkie real bad.
Right? So next time you watch The Thing, make sure to get a Twinkie.
Oh my God. Okay.
And that specific scene, actually, the actor who, is the guy on the table who gets his chest opened up.
Yes.
He had to be in makeup for 8 hours for that scene.
I was watching the behind the scenes video and I was just planning on like skipping through to watch all the what's his face, Rob Bottin parts, the guy that did all the special effects. But it seemed like everybody was just so fascinated by the special effects. It was basically just 2 hours of people talking about how crazy the monsters were and stuff. But yeah, it was like 10 hours initially. And then he fucked up the first time. And then he had to do another full day of fixing the body. Just like, oh. And John Carpenter was like, all right, shoot again. And he's like, no, that was a one take make or break moment. We have to put him back in makeup again. This like old man who's been sitting in a harness for like an entire day.
Cold. Like he's no shirt on.
Oh God. We're getting a little off topic because I'll get into the gore in a second. But my favorite part of them talking about that was how when he was making all the special effects stuff and like recreating his chest, he actually did like the chest hair. I think you told me this too. The chest hair was like so identical to his own chest hair that rewatching it back, he still has a hard time telling that that's a model and not him because they copied his chest hair so exactly, like the patterning.
That's amazing. I love that attention to detail.
Right?
Like the actual actor can't even tell.
And I guess a guy came in on set right after he was like all set up, and he initially was like, "Hey man, like, why are you lying here all naked? Like, put some clothes on." And then he had to get right up to it to realize that it was a model and that it was actually like part of the scene.
That's amazing. It wasn't even real. He was like trying to talk to it.
Yeah, so crazy. But yeah, I guess now I'll just talk about like my least favorite gore and then my most favorite gore, and then we can get into like some of the cool gore details of it before I go on to like to rate it, because there's just so much. There's a lot
to unpack. Once it gets going. If you want
to just know what my rating is, you can fast forward, but I would say like if you're planning on watching The Thing and you have an aversion to gore, it might be a good idea to listen to all the gore going on, because that helped me before watching it just to know what happened. But yeah, I'll say my Gory Wiener rating at the end. But for now, yeah, I'll say the gore that I had the hardest time with, I in a moment actually had to close my eyes because I knew it was happening. And then later, when I was watching all this, the like behind the scenes special effects, I watched it in like slow motion as they were describing it, and I found it a lot easier once they were talking about how it was made. But yeah, the hardest one was definitely the arms going into there's like a scene, if you haven't seen The Thing, there's a scene where there's a body that we were just talking about that was full makeup, like just the full prosthetic chest, and his shoulders and head is real, so his head is still there, so it like is a really good they make it look very real. And this guy is using, I guess it's called a defibrillator.
Yeah,
that's what it is. Yeah, where it basically it restarts the heart, and he goes down,
electrocutes you
to he goes down to electrocute to like electrocute the heart to start working, and the chest opens up. It's like this mechanical thing where it like rips open the skin, and it's like these mechanical teeth, and his hands go like straight into the body cavity, and then basically this mechanical teeth system shuts onto his arms, and he pulls his arms out, and they rip off. And after that, it's just like it's like actually a bear trap. It looks like a bear trap, and it is actually metal, and it is actually going through the prosthetic arms. Yeah, that's the word. And it rips like that. For some reason, that was the hardest one, because it seemed a little, just seeing like arms rip is just kind of not something I want to see. But after you realize what it is, what it's made of, and that the guy doing it actually, for like that 1 or 2 scenes, it's a guy without arms in real life, and they just put the prosthetic arms onto him.
There's
and they
an
ripped
actual
it off.
guy with two missing arms that they got for that, and it's amazing. They actually had a guy there on set.
So interesting, though, like that. Them describing that whole scene was so fascinating, because like the way that they had to rig it up. I guess this later on, the head pops off, and that part is really cool.
Crab, the very famous crab.
Famous crab. But they had like 2 people underneath the body. One guy was a puppeteer. Mm-hmm. There was like a diagram of it in the documentary. I took a photo of it.
Oh, that'd be cool.
Yeah, it is super cool. Let me just pull it up so I can like actually describe it. So there's one guy underneath who is like puppeteering the head, and they're just stuck in this little box. Like it looks like it's barely big enough for one person, and there's 2 people in there. And then they would have to be in the box underneath the medical table, because he's laying on a medical table, and there's a big metal storage area underneath it. That must be what they're actually in. Exactly. Yeah, I would imagine there might be like a little bit of a dip in the floor, hopefully. So
they probably cut out the bottom.
I would hope so. But there's a guy at the far left side underneath the head, and he's the puppeteer for the head as it's being like pulled off. And then on the right side, there's a guy that's like pumping blood and like all the like goop and stuff that spurts out of the head. So that part's really interesting. But anyways, for the for the actual arm part that we were talking about, the dude was in makeup, for 10 hours. The full chest thing was all fake, like I was saying. And what they actually made the arms out of was really interesting. Like the bone is just plastic, so it's a little bit harder. And then the flesh part is Jello, and then the veins is like plasticky Jello, so it's a little bit harder. And then there's like liquid blood in it, so it's like very detailed. So like when you chomp into it, it actually has similar texture to a human, probably not quite as like
Well,
rigid.
well,
But
they at least like wanted to simulate, the effects of having like, like veins in different parts of the body. So there are kind
yeah,
of textures to it. So like some things probably move just flappier than
yeah,
others, and gush more than others. So yeah, I don't think a lot of people probably actually think about that stuff when they're making gore these days. Like the
no,
idea of
I really
like,
wish that it was more that way now, but
yeah, like I'd love it
it's
if they made.
cheaper.
Yeah, well, that's why I always wonder about modern day horror. Is like, is it just so much cheaper now to do CG that it's not like affordable to do practical effects anymore? Like, I wonder if studios just want to veer away from them in general, just due to the fact that it must be a way cheaper to create some sort of like computer monster that, takes nothing at all to create, just a bunch of people
Yeah.
in a room.
And what I thought was really interesting too, that was sort of on that vein, was the way that Rob Bottin, I always have to read his name because there's a guy called Rob Boffin, I think, similar last name. He got his dick cut off by his wife. It's a very famous case.
No, that's what's her name? Moffat. Jessica Moffat. The
Boffin?
guy. I know exactly what you're talking about because I learned about this.
But the guy's
many
name
years
is
ago.
so similar to Rob Bottin that I've like mixed it up.
That guy got his penis sewed back on and became a porn star.
Oh yeah,
he threw it out on a highway.
He's so fucked up now.
I would imagine. So.
He got a penis lengthening surgery and then had to go back and get it shortened again. Anyways. It's a little.
I can't even.
Because I listened to a thing on that.
Got too long?
Before. Yeah. Well, I think it just fucked it up. But
I have a 20-inch penis. It's like, no, it's like you just can't physically use that. It's like no one should have a 20-inch penis. Give it to me.
I listened to like a little short documentary on that guy right before watching this thing, and then I started like, thankfully I didn't go to Google image searches for the wrong name.
Oh my god.
Anyways, that was off topic. What was I even talking about?
You're talking about the special effects and the gore effects within and how realistic they were with the arms.
Yeah, so I was talking about that, but one thing I was going to say too that's really interesting was how Rob Bottin, when he was talking to John Carpenter about all of like the ideas he had for the special effects, John Carpenter was like, those are pretty extreme effects. I don't know how we're going to do them. So what I would suggest is go talking to the storyboard artist, who was, I wrote it down somewhere. Oh, he had a funny name. Anyways, it's
not related to penis chop.
No. Mike Poots, I think is his name.
Mike Poots.
Yeah.
That's just like, that's literally what I say about the actress from Midsummer. Her last name is Poots.
Poots.
And so I would call her the Poots.
The Poots.
Like, it's the Poots.
I could be totally wrong, but yeah, so it's...
I like to imagine there's two Poots.
So Rob went over to Mike, the storyboard artist, and he sat down. He actually sat down with him and told him all of his ideas, and they worked it into the storyboard so that he basically was just building these creatures based on the camera, based on the scene. Okay. So he wasn't actually just creating what I would imagine a lot of people expect you do, which is just creating a full creature.
Yeah.
And then placing it in the scene after.
So they created it to camera then?
Yeah. So they actually had the storyboard artist add these characters into the scenes, and so they knew exactly what he had to build and what the purpose it was for. So it saved them time, and
which they had very little of.
Which they had very, very little of, and it also, a lot of these characters were like one use. So I think that really was like a lot of his creatures.
That's like the nature of the thing, is that every time you see it, it's 100% different.
Yeah.
And, well, it gets destroyed and it's always different. So you have to worry about like, okay, you can only use this once. Now create a completely new thing. You can't even reuse an older one.
Exactly. But there's like no shortcuts taken to make sure that it was, telling that story fully from the creature perspective, which I thought was really cool. Like, I mean, they made it as quick as they could in a way, but like I could see so many people wasting time and just creating way too much stuff and then not using all of it, or like it's not being used for the correct purpose. And then I think you said this as well, where when you were telling me about the thing, like the way that they light all of the creatures, oftentimes they're not the focus unless it's like a very specific scene. Like you'll see something out of the corner of your eye, like the head with the legs. It's like crawling in the background, and then later McRuddy's like, "You fucking kidding me?" And it's like his head with like spider legs.
You fucking kidding? That's the best line in the movie.
I love it. But yeah, I just thought that was really cool. And one guy in the interview is talking about his memory of the thing is actually from PVC jelly, like Vaseline. That is his memory of the thing, because there was just buckets and buckets of it that they would slime on top of all of the creatures, and like,
oh yeah,
they would light it with very just like minimal lighting so you could get a good glimpse of part of it but hide the imperfections.
Well, so
really
for the scene when they bring back the thing body from the Norwegian camp, they're doing an autopsy on it, and the scientist guy who eventually goes completely insane and destroys all of the radio equipment and stuff, and all of the helicopters, he's cutting the thing open and like pushing this like skin out of it. And so they had a model, and then they built another model over top of it, which was made out of this like rubber foam, and it was covered in this smoke that apparently just smelled awful. Like in the commentary.
Oh yeah.
John Carpenter just mentions like, yeah, this is at a time when people were still okay with cigarette smoke, so you don't use it anymore. Everything
is toxic. They all probably have like cancer now.
Well, it's funny in the commentary with John Carpenter, he talks about how there's this really famous Alfred Hitchcock movie where they used asbestos on the set, it was a John Wayne movie, sorry, and everyone got cancer from it. The Conqueror, right. I think it's called The Conqueror. And,
I remember them talking about that too.
Everyone gets cancer. So they're like, maybe this will be the moment where it's like, oh, Kurt Russell even says, he's like, yep, I'm going to look back when I'm older and say, yeah, I know I have this disease because of the thing.
Yeah.
Because the smell was so bad. So in those scenes, they're all just like, oh, and specifically Wilford Brimley, who's the scientist, who is a real life cowboy. So he was like perfect for the movie. He's just like, he actually was taking out animal livers and like playing with them in his hands and stuff, because like that's why it looks so realistic when he's taking out the organs, because they're just animal organs.
Oh wow.
And he had no problem doing it because he was a cowboy, so he's used to like carving up animals and birthing cows. So he was fine with it, but it's just like the smell.
That. Oh yeah. There's a part in the commentary where or maybe not the commentary, somewhere, but yeah, when they first discover the thing, and yeah, like you're saying, they bring it back. Was it in, I'm trying to remember, they took it, yeah, that's right, they took it from the previous burnt down
the Norwegian camp.
We should give a little backstory to people who haven't seen the thing, but basically these researchers, I guess, they come out to Antarctica and they discover that another campsite has already been burnt down for some reason. So they go to investigate and try to figure out what went on, and it seems pretty dire in there.
It's real that one gore scene with the guy who slices his own wrists.
Yeah, they see a guy he's like charred, and he's sliced his own wrists. So something real fucked up happened there. We don't know what it is yet. And they discover that there's something in the ice there that they cut out and they bring over. And once it's thawed in their camp, it's this really weird, like other life form. It's like all kind of like, you know, it's hard to describe because there's just
like two
an
faces
amalgamation.
fused together.
That's yeah. There's like two faces fused together. It's all like, I don't know. What's the word I'm thinking of? Like it's kind of as if something was like writhing together.
Yeah,
all these different
like
life
amalgamation
forms. An amalgamation of different creatures
under flesh.
Yeah. And a little backstory on the thing itself is basically it will absorb whatever creature it comes in contact with, and then it keeps doing that. So it can kind of pull out different creatures as it goes along. So if it was like in the thing that we watched, it starts out as a dog and then it goes to humans, and then you can kind of see at the very end that it's got all of these different creatures stuck into it. So basically you're seeing,
and even
that.
but like the really cool thing about it is that it is an amalgamation of a bunch of creatures from other planets before it even comes to Earth, because like it, you know, somehow it turns its head into a weird crab monster and then eyeballs shoot out of it.
Yeah.
Like, that's not like on Earth. So you know that it's absorbed creatures from other planets. So you have no idea what like its true form could even be capable of, because
exactly.
it's a combination of so many things that like if it just collects enough mass, it'll probably become
really interesting.
Terrifying. Because like when the dog, the very famous dog scene when it's like at the end when right before they blowtorch it, the whole thing opens up as like this horrifying flesh flower, which is still one of the most terrifying things that I've seen in that movie, and it still creeps me out because like you can see the tongues of the dogs it's absorbed and the teeth.
And the teeth.
Yeah.
And I thought that
the more you look at it, the more horrifying it is. Like the attention to detail on it's so great.
But it was funny, basically, back to the little like the mound that they discover, and it's de-thawing and they're seeing all this weird fucked up shit. Apparently that was the scene that grossed out most audiences, because they're basically dissecting this thing and people were not used to seeing something, you know, so like
they said that was the part in the movie where people started to turn, and then after that the dog scene is when people shut off. That's what they said.
I guess at that part that's when I think people just found that too disgusting. I think like the other parts of it.
Seen that. And also E.T. had come out a week earlier, so they were used to happy
Spielberg
aliens.
Alien.
Not
happy alien. I mean, E.T. is creepy in his own right, but
but they were trying to make him cute. He's unintentionally creepy.
Oh God.
He looks like a
not
putty.
Mac and me.
Oh God. Well, yeah, that's true. That's far worse. Have you seen the video of the original Mac and Me ending where the little kid gets shot by the cop?
I shouldn't laugh at that, but it's so
inappropriate for
it's inappropriate out of nowhere. That's why it's funny, because it's just like, what the fuck?
It's like you're trying to make a children's movie and you thought it would be a good idea to waste the kid.
Kill the kid protagonist at the end. Yes, do that.
Already in a wheelchair.
Like killing Elliot at the end of E.T. Like, what the fuck are you thinking?
It's like, how sad do you want to make this child? Like, here is tragic child number one. He will have the most tragic ending you could possibly imagine.
Oh, it's like E.T. just turning around and like murdering everyone in the family and then going home and just flipping the bird. Instead of like E.T. go home, it's like, fuck you.
Just start stabbing them. He makes that horrible noise.
Oh, but anyways, back to the thing.
A little E.T. Side story there.
Aliens, it's all related. It's
same family.
But I guess I talked about like my least favorite gore, and my favorite gore is kind of hard to figure out. I think I really loved the faces stuck together because it just looks so cool. Like the sculpture of it is really good.
Yeah.
But my favorite gore, I guess it's the same scene. I really like the head coming off and like it landing on the ground for some reason, and like the little spider head.
Oh, okay. Well, those are actually two separate scenes because the double-faced thing is from the Norwegian camp, and the spider crab thing is later on when the ginger dude is the thing.
Oh yeah, sorry, I was thinking. I really liked the double head thing.
Yeah.
But probably like my favorite gore, because I guess that's still gore, but like my favorite.
It's all gore.
My favorite moving gore, I guess that was like machinery, is the one with the head popping off and then crawling. Yeah. And I should that I don't know why it's so funny to me that the cutting of the arms off was too much for me to watch, but I loved watching the head pop off because it is.
Oh, because it sounded like a New Jersey person. Head pop off. Head popped off. Head popped off.
That's why you cringed. It wasn't because it's a gore. It was the Jersey accent.
That's how you pop off.
Just kind of like, I don't know. My mouth did a weird thing, and I sounded like I'm from Jersey. I'm Canadian. I'm not from New Jersey. Don't have an accent except Canadian.
No one wants to admit that.
I'm just preparing to moving to the East Coast. Okay,
right? You gotta get your accent.
Gotta get my accent. Sound like I'm from New York.
Yeah, what's going on? Give me my pizza.
Pizza.
The shamoli.
But yeah, the arm, the arm tearing, I couldn't do, but the head popping off, I was fine with. I think again, it comes down to it being a little bit more abstract because it is very clearly a puppet. Like it is not at that point. It's no longer the dude's head. It is a puppet, and it's like writhing. Like the puppeteer's doing his best, but it's a lot. There's a lot of stuff going on, and I guess this was another scene where they had to do it twice.
Okay.
Because
they had to rip off the head twice. How the hell do you pull that off?
Yeah. So the first time, it took them an entire day to rebuild it.
Imagine.
But basically, so again, with like all the toxic stuff happening inside the head, so he basically really wanted it to look like a comic book. With the head stretching off like something you'd see in a sci-fi comic book, where the inside tendons are stretching as like the head is separating, and then
that's the disturbing part for sure. The popping of the juices.
The popping of the juices. So he couldn't find anything that he already knew of that would stretch like that. So what he did was he started melting shit together. So he was melting different plastics and rubbers and bubble gum, mixing it all together, and he finally got something that would stretch, but it smelled so toxic that people thought the room was burning down because it smelled like just burnt rubber constantly.
Oh, I bet it was disgusting. It probably was very toxic,
I would imagine. So they basically shoot the scene, and John Carpenter at the last minute was like, wait, we need some continuity here, so we need to have there needs to be some fire in the background, because right before that they start actually burning down like the other thing to make sure that it doesn't spread after his arms got chopped off and all that fun stuff. So to add continuity, they had a guy with like a little fire bar underneath the camera to make sure it looked like there was a little bit of burning in the background and some smoke. And Rob was like, at this moment, I kind of was shitting my pants because all of the rubber I was using and melting is extremely flammable. I did not know it was going to happen. There's all these like flammable fumes in the air as I'm burning plastic. But John Carpenter wants his continuity. So and, like, as someone who's worked in film, it's like a get continuity, man. You can't just add it in post all the time, especially in the 80s. So
oh God, yeah, you just have to film what you film.
yeah. So as soon as they lit that thing, the body exploded, and everyone was okay, and it was fine. But like they had to go back to the drawing board, and John Carpenter was like, "What the fuck was that?" And he's like, "All right, fix it, and we'll roll it again." And Rob's like, "It's gonna take me at least a day to get this back because I need to."
Blew up.
It blew up in front of you. So after they did it the second time, it succeeded, but.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so
wow.
it was all just so toxic. And yeah, like I was explaining before, they were all sitting underneath the gurney and one guy puppeteering, one guy with like the blood goop and stuff exploding. Yeah, and then it's a different scene with the floor and like the arms popping out, which I really liked how they shot that because, yeah, like we were talking about before, it's like you see it in the background, so as an audience member you can see it before the characters do, and you can see it kind of blurred in the background, just like, and it's creepy, but for some reason I was like, it's kind of cute.
Yeah. Oh God, it's so goofy.
It's kind of like, it's just funny.
I would not want that thing pet.
Oh fuck no, but it's just so funny compared to all the other.
Oh yeah,
things.
yeah. Well, I think it's kind of like one of the slightly comedic moments of the movie,
comedic.
which there isn't a lot of in the movie. It's funny because in the commentary with John Carpenter and Kurt Russell, they specifically talk about how they were really trying to make sure that they took it seriously and that all the characters, for the most part, were very serious. And that's what upset people a lot, was the fact that it was taken so seriously and there were very few moments of levity compared to his other movies where, you know, even as serious as they get, they still have levity to them. There's still like some moments where you can release as an audience, but the thing is like you're just tense pretty much the whole time.
Yeah, definitely. It's so stressful watching that thing. Watching the movie.
The thing of the thing.
Watching that thing. Yeah, I'm curious what your favorite and least favorite gore scenes are.
Well, yeah. So I'd say like my favorite scene of the movie is definitely when they're doing the blood test and like they're all tied up. Kurt Russell has a flamethrower and he's like putting the heated copper into the blood.
Yeah.
And they just keep doing it, and it like goes on a long time. Like
it's a good scene. I was so nervous watching that for the first time.
It's very tense, and like the constant like boom boom in the background, and it goes past the rule of threes because normally in movies everything happens in threes. Like,
yeah, that's true.
The third time, that's when something happens. But in this movie, they go past it and nothing happens on the third one. So you're like, oh, okay, maybe none of them are the thing. But then all of a sudden, that one guy becomes the thing. And it's in that sequence. It's not even that thing is the goriest thing. It's actually one of like the lamer looking versions of the thing. But
it was kind of funny when it happened to me.
Oh, it is. Yeah. Like once he starts becoming it, he's like, he bites the dude's head and starts whipping him around. Yeah. It's like clearly a dummy. But yeah, like the tension of that scene, I would say that is my favorite like scene of the movie just because of that. But like gore wise, it will always be the dog sequence with like that. It kicks off the movie. It's the first moment the thing is revealed, and it is traumatizing. Like, you know, like when I watch John Wick, I'm like, I feel nothing for this little dead dog because I've watched The Thing and seen a massacre of huskies, beautiful Arctic princes getting blown away. by goddamn thing jizz, and it's just
it's
barfing
so
out this like
gross.
sludge on them,
Yeah.
and the dogs are howling, and it just like wraps them up with its horrible tentacles. And apparently those tentacles are actually real whips, and so
Oh,
there's
wow.
just a guy in the back, there's guys in the background just whipping like
Oh
Indiana
my
Jones
God.
whips. So
That's
for
hilarious.
all those scenes where you see them going crazy, it's actually dudes in the background with real whips that are colored pink.
That's really cool. Yeah, I was hoping they would get into that scene a little bit more because to describe it a little bit. I'm gonna assume, I don't know, I would assume most people have seen The Thing, but like me, I couldn't watch it from the gore, so there might be some people listening that haven't seen The Thing due to that. But
the dog scene, I think, is the most famous part of the movie, though. Like in terms that dog and the defibrillator scene, I think everyone knows those
they
two
know
scenes.
that it exists. Like I would say, that is one of the grossest scenes, but you can definitely still tell that they are puppets. And it's funny because there's like one or two scenes that is not Rob Bottin that did it. It's like some other dude, and it's kind of like the least freaky part of that scene, where it's like the dogs that got jizzed on, and they're like gyrating.
They got very famous Stan Winston, who is like the godfather of all monsters. He did the scene where the dog is just like on the ground, and it's kind of like writhing around, like his arm is in the puppet and it's moving the head around, and that's Stan Winston's arm.
Yes, it's really cool because it's like they got a robot head, it's automated head, but his arm is still puppeteering it. It's like, oh, that's kind of interesting. But yeah, I would say that scene is really nasty. It'd probably be like number 2 on my least favorite, because I could still watch it. It wasn't it was gross though. Like it doesn't make you feel good watching it. It was just like, oh, this is nasty. But for some reason, when they're still kind of intact, it kind of reminds me of and I'm pretty sure this is stolen from The Thing, but like in Color Out of Space with the llamas, it is so close to the dogs. Like it is.
Oh yeah.
That kind of prepared me for it, probably.
That's funny that you watched that one first, because definitely when I was watching Color Out of Space, I'm like, oh yeah, that's the Thing reference.
Totally, it totally is, because they have, it's like they're like they're deformed a little bit, and then they're becoming hairless and just covered in like this weird jizzy stuff, and it's all gross and chunky. But then when it gets to the Rob Bottin, which by the way is crazy that he was 22 years old when he made all this shit. I'm like, are you kidding? I didn't do anything good when I was 22.
Right? Yeah, I have like I was doing nothing of value. Wasn't making
nerdcore
famous movies. I was working in a chem lab.
Oh yeah.
Thought I made meth.
People thought you made meth. There you go.
But when you tell them you work in a lab in East Hastings, they make assumptions.
Yeah. Working in a bad part of town. Yeah. It's fine.
Well, Dean Cundy he did the lighting and stuff, and he was also super young, and he was in charge of kind of like,
wow, that's cool,
the head of it. And and I think also with John Carpenter, he had his crew from when he was doing Halloween, which was an independent indie movie, and so he insisted that he brought all those people with him to do The Thing, and so they all had to sign up for the union, and so it was like a big to do to get all of these people to actually work on the movie, just because they were all just these independent people that worked with these dudes, and that was all of it. Like they have these crazy stories about the guys who actually fly the helicopters in the movie. There were these Alaskan Bushmen apparently, and they were really wild dudes, and they let Kurt Russell fly the helicopter when they were taking it off, and you can see the scene in the movie when the helicopter's taking off with Kurt Russell in it. The guy just oh, you can fly now, and he's like, okay, and he started flying, and then at that moment the helicopter starts to turn, and it's because Kurt Russell takes over. And the guy even offered even offered John Carpenter. He's like, "Hey man, if you pay me more money, I'll crash a helicopter for the movie." And he's like, "We don't need you to do that."
Oh my God, that's basically suicide.
Yeah, like how
would
like,
you survive that?
are you gonna jump out of the helicopter as it's crashing? Like,
How
what's your
would
game
you-
plan, dude?
Oh my God.
He clearly was okay doing it. It must not have been his first time.
Clearly, wow.
But
yeah,
there's some pretty funny stories, and it was like an all-male crew.
Yes.
There was one female on the crew, but she was pregnant, and then she had to leave.
Oh, one girl made she built the spaceship.
Oh, okay.
So
okay,
she was in like the crew, but not the actors, which is funny because based off John Carpenter famously based it off of the novella Who Goes There. And I actually read that in preparation. It's really good. And it's so close to actually what John Carpenter did. But there's way more people there. And they actually had some women in the camp in the novella.
Yeah. Okay.
But I would say like the biggest difference, because I didn't really there was no male-female dynamic that I can recall. I think there was women in it. I thought there was. Maybe I'm wrong.
It wasn't consequential.
It was not consequential in any way, but the biggest difference that I noticed when I was reading it was that instead of just like one person being the thing during the blood test scene, there's 14.
Oh, holy crap.
14 people were infected.
Oh, that's way scarier.
And I can't imagine having to film that. So like they cut down the cast a lot.
Well, yeah, that's really funny because John Carpenter talks about how the thing he was most afraid about filming was the shots where there's just 12 people standing in a room. It's like it's the greatest challenge for a director is making a bunch of people talking in a room interesting. Like how do you shoot
I know how that
10
is.
people hanging out in a room? It's like you have to be cutting all the time, making it like kind of dynamic.
Gives me flashbacks to a show that we were working on together called Kong.
Yeah. It's just like which one of the two are you going to mention?
I didn't succeed in making it interesting though, but it was like an entire episode of people talking and it was not interesting. So
that entire show was not interesting.
John Carpenter
I can't.
does a much better job than any of us could ever do.
Oh God, Lacey had something more fascinating to work with than a bunch of assholes standing around in a helicopter.
Oh my God. But yeah, so yeah, we've got a little bit off topic from what I was saying initially, but yeah, the the dog scene. The part when Rob Bottin takes over, that's when it becomes a little bit more interesting, I think, to watch with the and you hate this part with like the flower thing opening up and like the teeth and the tongues. I think I was just kind of fascinated by it. I was like, oh, it's interesting. But because it's becoming more abstract, I would say it's easier to handle than what you would expect it to be.
Yeah, you're more fascinated by it, I would say, than like horrified because you're just your brain's just trying to process like, what is this? What am I looking at?
And I would say to anybody that is afraid of body gore, probably The Thing is actually a pretty good place to start. That and Color Out of Space, because it's tangible, like it's I don't know, it's well done enough, but you can still tell kind of what's going on. You can still tell that a lot of it is puppets. It's not always right in your face. Sometimes it's a little bit, it's just abstract and kind of, I don't know, it's sci-fi, I would say, and not exactly something you could picture happening to yourself. So
on a day-to-day basis, you're not worried about, walking up and petting a dog and all of a sudden its face blows up and turns into like a horrible monster.
The most challenging part of watching The Thing is the buildup. That is the hardest part, because you can talk about all the gory scenes all day, but then when you're actually watching it, because John Carpenter is so amazing and masterful at suspense, when you get to the actual scene, it has impact because of the buildup that it has to it, and the score is perfect. It's just very bleak and isolating, but it's done in a really good way that it's still interesting. So yeah, that kind of, I guess that sums up my thoughts on the gore, but if you want to talk more about it, I'm happy to, because there's still so much stuff.
Well, I was gonna get into like my least favorite, but yeah, I say least favorite with a grain of salt because of the fact that I do love most of everything that's in the movie.
Yeah.
But the climax of the movie when you see the giant monster, and it's kind of like this amalgamation of everything, and it like bursts out of the ground. It's like that thing is so beyond any sort of like combination of real person that it's just completely fake. You're not scared by it at all. It's just this big giant goopy monster. But I do applaud the effort that they put in to create that thing, because apparently it took 50 people to actually operate that thing underneath it. There was 50 people just helping to make everything come out of it and move and do everything. And so to have 50 people coordinating to then film this thing as other stuff is going on is definitely I tip my hat to anybody who's able to do that. Like, holy crap, to coordinate that much stuff and then still film the scene. And then Kurt Russell's awesome line of, well, fuck you too. That's one of my I think that's my favorite line.
Yeah, that's great. Kurt Russell was good in it. Yeah.
Oh yeah, he was. Kurt Russell actually he came up with the ending of the movie. He was the one that suggested that they just have two of them, because they actually had a bunch of different endings where one of them was where Kurt Russell was the Thing, and he turns into the Thing and kills the other guy. And then there was another version where they were both the Thing, because they kept, like, on set, they kept having all these conversations of whether the Thing, when it was possessing a human, actually knew it was the Thing as a defense mechanism. Like, it wouldn't actually know that it is an alien until it is found out, and then it kind of like switches modes into the Thing. So that was kind of like the discussion, like, does it know it's the Thing? Does it not know it's the Thing? Like, does the Thing go out seeking other people, or does it kind of just wait around? Like, so they were always kind of trying, they could never really nail down exactly like the thought process of what the alien actually wanted beyond just surviving. And so they weren't exactly sure how to end the movie. But then Kurt Russell's like, well, I think it'll be just best if, you just don't know, and you can just two guys sitting there, and that's how it ends. And because they had another version where like a helicopter was coming at the end to rescue them.
I heard about that. Yeah, it was like the backup plan for the audiences.
Yeah, because they did a lot of test screenings, and there was a lot of trouble with that. Like, apparently the redness of the dog in the dog scene was a really big thing. What? If they made the dog too red, people started to tune out. So they had to turn it like a shade of like purpley green.
Whoa.
Because people didn't like seeing it look too real. They didn't like the idea of actual dog blood and flesh being torn apart. But if it like was already an alien looking thing, for whatever reason, audiences naturally were able to handle it better.
That makes some sense, actually. I think I would have been more sickened if it was like a skinned dog or something.
Oh God, yeah.
Right?
You think like, oh, did they use a real skinned dog?
But yeah, about the ending, that's interesting, because it's funny. I know that that's kind of the part that most people think of as being the weakest. But apparently, I have a sneeze that keeps trying to come. Okay, it's gone. It's like, where are you coming? But yeah, they hired a really talented stop motion animator. I'm trying to find.
To do the last little bit.
Randy Cook. He was hired to kind of do a bunch of stop motion animation, to the point where they actually recreated that entire set in miniature form in like a stop motion set. And the person that was building it was actually the lady that built the she built the UFO set, like built the whole UFO. Yeah, she was like, it was almost impossible trying to recreate it exactly, but she did her best. But it was because it's inside a cave, so you can't get like exact measurements. It's all just jagged rock everywhere. So she basically just took a shit ton of measurements and tried to copy it as exact as possible so that they could cut back and forth when they needed to, and it would be seamless. But at the end, John Carpenter could tell that it was stop motion, so he cut it from the movie. It's like, oh, can you imagine being that animator?
Oh, oh no. Oh.
Yeah, like working with John Carpenter, doing the finale of the movie, and then it just, it's stop motion, so it's not good enough for the thing. I could see it standing out, honestly, because stop motion and real life effects moving in real time, it's different,
especially in the 80s. Like they didn't have the same sort of like
it would have probably
dolls that they have now.
It would have probably been like 2 or 4 frames a second as opposed to like real time, so it would have definitely been noticeable. But that sucks, being animators.
Well, it's funny. I have another funny animator story about that. Like when I was going to school, one of our teachers told us that he worked on Titanic, and he spent his entire time working on Titanic on this one shot. Like took him a year to do, and it's just the stupid Titanic sailing into the sunset, essentially, like as it starts its maiden voyage. And so he spent his entire time working on just this one shot. And then James Cameron had the final say, and he vetoed it and cut it. And so he said he was like so upset because he literally just wasted like a year of his life making this stupid shot. And so they went to the wrap party, James Cameron was there, and he went up to him and asked him, he's like, why did you like cut my shot? It's like, I spent like my entire time on it. He's like, oh, it's because I never want the Titanic to look like it's getting smaller, because to the audience it won't seem as magnificent. So the Titanic always has to be massive in frame. So that's why I had to get rid of it. He was like, God damn it. It's like, I understood it, but I was so pissed off that he did it.
Oh, God. That just sucks. Yeah, because he cut it solely from a director perspective, not on like the quality sucks. It's just
exactly. It's just story wise, this will not move it forward in the direction I want. So
get it. Yeah, that sucks. Yeah. Were there still stop motion parts? I think there were.
There's some stop motion parts in the thing at the end when the tentacles are like coming out,
right?
Yeah, they're kind of like slithering across the ground. That's definitely stop motion, but the actual like monster itself is all practical effects. And it's only there, you could tell it was a huge pain in the ass because it's only there for like 15 seconds and then they blow it up.
It sucks because I know that part was the hardest, but it's like the least memorable part of the whole movie.
Honestly, like it's the part that I forgot about it. I forget about the ending of that portion of the ending. I always remember the very end.
The very ending,
but I always forget that little bit where. And that's why, but there is one of my favorite gory bits within that sequence, which is really simple, is when Wilford Brimley, who's the Thing, just grabs the English scientist's face and like puts his fingers like into his skin. And he starts like absorbing him.
Oh, yeah.
And that part is like really great how they did that, like with the prosthetics, like just so goopy again.
So much goop. That's the biggest, that's like the favorite thing in all horror movie, goop.
I tell you, more movies these days, people have given up on goop. They need to bring goop back.
It's really true. I was looking at some of the effects in the prequel, the new prequel to The Thing. Didn't watch it. 2011 or something, right?
Yeah, I watched that.
It's so like there's no goop. There's absolutely no goop to it, and it really sucks. Like I want to go and see what the initial practical effects were going to be like, because I know it was supposed to be more practical effects, and then the director just cut it because
Well, I think it was like the producers,
Or not the-
like
the
they got
director,
freaked out because
producer.
the idea that like it looked too old or something. Like, oh, it looks fake. But it's like, of course it looks fake right now. It's not shot right. Like, you have to like put it in the movie with the lighting and the effects, and
There's
like
way
it's
too
not
much,
just this plastic thing.
there's way too much red tape now in movies, it seems like. And in
Yeah.
hearing about the production of The Thing, it sounds like John Carpenter was just given free reign and he was able to do what he wanted to do, which is rare.
I watched an interview where the guy asked him about like the how he got like the job, and he said that like, oh, you know, I made Halloween and The Fog, and both of those made tons of money, and so Paramount like started to court him essentially, and the initial contract said that like, Paramount has final story and artistic rights to the movie. And John Carpenter just told him, he's like, I'm not going to do the movie then. I won't do it if you tell me that. And so they backed off, and they actually did give him a bunch of freedom that they wouldn't normally do, because he also really didn't actually want to do The Thing because it was a giant fan of the original movie. And actually in the original Halloween movie on the TV is playing the original Thing from the 50s. You can see it in the background, and at the time,
Another World.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and so I think, isn't the original one still called The Thing, or is it not called The Thing?
1951 is called the one from 1951 is called A Thing from Another World.
Oh, okay, The Thing from Another World. Yeah, and so he had that playing, and so he was always a big fan of it. So that's why he didn't want to do a remake. 'Cause he's like, I don't know what else I could do unless I just modernized it. And that's when he decided to go back to the short story version and create what he did. And he's like, I'll focus on the monster more.
Yeah, that's good, because I think I haven't seen that version of The Thing from the 50s. Maybe they're talking about a different one, because the one from the 50s, or maybe it's the same one,
probably,
but it basically, I mean, it's from the 50s. What can you do in the 50s? And it was like basically just a dude walking around in a suit, and he started to get like things growing off of him.
I remember seeing like one photo of it, and he just has like a bumpy face.
Yeah. And I think he can spread to other people and stuff, but I don't remember. Like, I just read a very brief synopsis of it. I haven't watched it. I'm curious, though. I feel like, because they all loved that version of it, so I'm curious how good it is. But I know watching other people's reviews of The Thing, everyone's like, oh yeah, it's not that great.
Well, it must be so 50s, vastly different. Yeah, it has to be so different that like, if you like The Thing, you shouldn't expect it to be like the John Carpenter version. You have to go in knowing this is going to be slow and just a bunch of people talking in rooms, because that's what 50s movies are, is people talking in rooms or westerns.
Yeah. But I'm curious, because I mean, I love old school horror that's like black and white and so cheesy. One really cool fact I found out, actually, the matte painter Albert Whitlock, his matte paintings are absolutely phenomenal. He painted that entire when they're looking down in the cavern at the UFO, that's all a matte painting. It's so good. But he worked with Alfred Hitchcock on The Birds.
Oh shit! That's
I was
awesome.
like, holy shit! How old is this guy?
That guy's got to be amazing. Like,
so cool. They showed his matte paintings. It was like, oh my god, that to have that skill, to be that good.
Oh my
holy shit!
Yeah, like an entire like lifetime of craft just under his belt. Like, that totally makes sense. Well, those were really good matte paintings. They were really
really
done.
good.
That spaceship area. Well, it's funny because they actually got guys to shimmy down the side of a glacier for that, to like put it into the shot. And it was the same helicopter pilots, the crazy guys that offered to crash it, that did that. They're like, oh yeah, we'll shimmy down it. Don't worry about it. So like so it's all the crazy helicopter pilot guys.
Oh my god. They just want to be involved.
They were happy to do it. They're like, hey, we live in Alaska. We got nothing better to do with our time. Yeah, sure.
That's hilarious. Oh my god.
So they pop up every once in a while, the crazy helicopter bushmen.
That's so funny.
Yeah, but that whole sequence, what is it? They like put it together with like 3 different elements, and they said that like also they were getting like whited out at the time, like where like the snow just comes in. They said like it was like super hard to film because the fact that like there's this constant like snow just obscuring everything essentially.
Yeah, that's true.
And when they were flying, they actually were flying helicopters, and Kurt Russell and John Carpenter got stuck in one of them. And they started freaking out because they didn't actually understand what it meant to be in a whiteout, where like your senses, like John Carpenter says, like it's like being inside a ping pong ball. It's like your senses are completely useless because you don't have an orientation for like up and down, and you just have to use the instruments on your actual helicopter, or else you'll just crash. You can't trust your natural instincts because most people have like an instinct to like pull up, but that means they're actually going down because they don't know what direction they're pointed in.
Fuck. That would be extra terrifying in a helicopter because like I've driven in a whiteout before, and all you can do is just go at like 10 kilometers an hour and hope you don't crash into something. Yeah. But you're on ground at least, like they're in the air.
Yeah, you have a lot more directions to go in. Like you're at least going in one direction.
Oh shit.
They have a lot of options.
That sounds terrifying. Yeah, I guess a few people actually almost got stuck out there a few times because when the actors had to go out, and maybe it was the same part you were talking about, but they went out with like the matte painter and all that stuff to try to match like their positions to his matte painting. Yeah. I don't know why they didn't do it the other way around, but I don't know.
Yeah, because they filmed the one scene on a Universal lot, and it's the 3 of them walking up to like the hole in the ice, and then everything else is a matte painting behind them.
Yeah. But yeah, they were trying to match it with like the previous shots with the matte painting and the Universal lot. That's probably what it was. But they went out with like the matte painter just to make sure that the lighting was correct and all that stuff. And that he kept wanting to wait for the not the Universal hour.
The Universal hour.
The magic hour. When
the golden hour.
The golden hour.
The magic hour. That magic time when movies are made in the magic hour. So that's when the movie magic is made.
The golden hour. I'm a photographer, clearly. The golden hour. And it's just like white out there. Like there isn't really a golden hour when it's like white and snow, and you just wanted to wait for the sun to start going down. But it like you look at the videos and it's just white, like, and it's snowing. I'm like, I don't think you're gonna get a beautiful sunlight through the trees. I don't know. And they ended up having to leave early because the guy's like, if we wait any longer, we're gonna be stuck here in a blizzard. So they leave. And they almost ran out of fuel on the way back because the helicopter was like waiting for too long, I guess. And yeah, it was just a mess.
Oh my God. That's crazy. Yeah, they definitely just briefly talk about how it was a bit of a shit show in general, just trying to like film the whole thing and how it went. And like everyone got sick apparently because the scenes when they're inside is on a Universal Studio lot, but they still needed to like make like fake breath and stuff. So like sometimes Kurt Russell said he would just smoke a cigarette and then just blow it at the beginning of the scene, and they had like little buckets of dry ice that they would keep near their mouth to create breath. And so like the whole Norwegian camp scene,
that's right.
And they had these misters that created mist so that it would cool it down enough that you could see their breath. But apparently the misters, because it was so hot outside, the temperature difference messed with people, and everyone got super sick. And so during
that makes
scene,
sense.
yeah, everyone was like crazy sick, and apparently like most of the actors were all sick and had the flu, and everyone was miserable. They just hated doing it. So yeah, that whole sequence
that
was
would mess
just
with
like
you,
a nightmare.
Being cold and then hot in like California summers.
Yeah, well, yeah, like Kurt Russell says, like, yeah, it's like 108 degrees outside. It's all nice and sunny. Then you come into the studio and it's freezing cold. It's like it just messes with you. It's just like, oh god. And then you go back out into the heat again afterwards. Like, there's even like a little comment where they said, it's like, yeah, I remember my wife being really angry at me during the filming of this movie because I didn't want to do anything when I came home. So, so miserable.
I remember hearing that too. It's like, yeah, that would be hard to be in character for the thing and then coming home to your normal life and it's just like normal, but you're used to this absolutely miserable.
Yeah, how was your day? It's like, I saw some guy's head get ripped off, a bunch of dogs died, and I'm freezing cold. It
sounded like a really fun movie to work on, but then being in character would be taxing because everyone is just dying.
Oh my god, yeah.
all the time.
Yeah, it's like traumatizing. Well, they were saying how like a bunch of the characters, they actually built their own like kind of backstories that they don't really talk about in the movie, but like Kurt Russell, because he's a helicopter pilot, his story is that he's actually like a ex-Vietnam War vet, and that's why he like lives up there, is because he can't be around people anymore because of all the shit that he saw. So like that's why he lives specifically in a tiny cabin away from everybody.
Okay, yeah, that's right. Yeah, there was one character who's isolated for most of the movie, right? So he
yeah, that's the cabin that Kurt Russell normally like lives in. It's like his little isolated cabin.
I thought you were talking about the one guy that's like he gets locked.
Well, Wilford Brimley, he's the crazy like, they're trying to copy us. He's trying to be us. Apparently for that scene they just told him to go just do whatever you want, just go nuts in this room. And so he just started like smashing stuff with the axe and like firing the gun off, and he threw it at them. They just let him do whatever he wanted for that scene. It just was hilariously crazy.
In terms of gore though, was there anything else that you wanted to mention?
Like, I would say like everything else, like compared to those scenes we've already talked about, are like pretty inconsequential in terms of gore. Like, I would say that it's fun not to mention all of it, just so that if people watch it, because there is other scenes with the thing that we haven't talked about, and they're done really well. They're still kind of gory, but there's not really anything worth mentioning that's more traumatic than
no, if you can get through, I'd say if you can get through like the dog scene at the beginning, you'll be fine. It's like, because that is, I think that is one of the grossest scenes, but
and
it
people always have a hard time with animal death in general. It sets
the tone a little bit. So I would say if you could watch that, then you'll probably be fine throughout the rest of the movie, because that's like the first test. And I think the rest of it, if you just go into it with the mindset of like how did they do that? How did they manage to get this all created and working for the camera? I think it's more fascinating than it is terrifying, but it's also a really good movie. So
I would say just try to watch it just to let your mind go and just try to let yourself enjoy the horror.
It's more fun to watch with someone else too. I would say I'll probably I might watch it again by myself, but like to watch it for the first time with someone else was a good experience, because there are definitely moments where if
you're like alone. But I'll never forget my coworker when I got him to watch it when we were both working OT on a Saturday, and he's like, I've never seen The Thing. I was like, you never seen The Thing? I was like, oh well, you gotta watch The Thing. And so little did I know that he was like this like super sheltered guy that grew up in Georgia, in the South and had like a very religious upbringing, so he'd never really seen any horror movies before. So I'm like, yeah, watch The Thing, it's great. And so he starts watching it, and I just happened to turn over around the time when the dog scene was happening, and the look on his face, his mouth was just dropped. It was like, his eyes were open, his brows were raised. I've never seen like such a look of shock and terror upon someone's face. He just kept it locked that way for 5 minutes, essentially, while he's just watching this whole sequence.
That's amazing.
He just turns to me. He's like, "What did I just watch?" I just shook the foundations of his reality by making him watch that. I think
Poor
that's
guy.
what started my fascination with trying to traumatize people into watching horror movies, which is what has gotten us to this point today.
Exactly.
Is that moment when I saw the look of horror on his face and how funny I thought it was.
I'm just here for your entertainment, I see.
Exactly. Just so to see the look of terror on your face.
I have to say I'm a little bit concerned with what we watch next because it's only going downhill from here for me.
Oh, I can't wait. I'm excited.
Sure. But yeah, I guess I should rate this now. I'm trying to remember how I did it before. I know it was like 5 gory wieners is like the best, but I can't remember if 5 means it's more watchable or less watchable.
Oh, yeah. I wanted to say that 1 was more watchable. I wanted to say you went on with the lower numbers being the higher one. I think.
It's because I want to give.
I would say that. Yeah, I guess
I want
to.
Sorry.
I was like, which way should we do the number system? It'd probably make more sense to do the higher number being the better one, because that's generally how
I know
every rating system does it.
I'll have to go back and listen to how I did it in the previous one. That probably would have been smart, but because I want to give it 4.5 out of 5 as like a positive thing. Because
all right.
I took off the 0.5 because I closed my eyes during the arm scene, but I rewatched it again later and it was fine. So, but with the gore, I mean, for me, it was watchable. I think it was like a really good level for me to watch.
It's the 80s, you can see the age in it, somewhat.
I'll give it. Yeah, it's weird to give it 4.5 gory meters out of 5, as if it's a positive thing. Yeah. I'm gonna go with that, and if it's a positive rating, not a negative rating. So I would say you could watch it. Might have to amend that rating system later so it makes more sense, but
we can work out those details later.
But yes, I would say, I don't know. I need to figure out a good rating system, because I would say 4.5 out of 5 means it is still scary and it's still a gory movie, but it is watchable for somebody who has an aversion to gore, as long as you're not specifically afraid of real puppet sci-fi gore.
That's a very specific niche.
If you're not afraid of goopy puppets, you're fine.
Yeah. As long as you've ever pondered if you're okay with goopy puppets, just don't watch that and you'll be okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I'd say that's a pretty good first episode.
Yeah, good first podcast. Hopefully, people are able to follow our ramblings a little bit. But
through the labyrinths of our conversation, there's some twists and turns along the way, but
yes, yeah, excellent. I will stop the recording here.
Excellent.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
All right, podcast's over.